Have you ever found yourself pouring your heart and energy into someone only to feel them slipping further away? It's a painful irony, like trying to hold sand in your hand. The harder you grip, the more it escapes. You may find yourself wondering, why do they pull away the moment I show them how much I care? What am I doing wrong? Let me share a secret rooted in the wisdom of Stoicism. The more you chase what is not yours to control, the more elusive it becomes. Emotional distance, contrary to what many believe, isn't about coldness or manipulation. It's about self-respect and realignment. It's about stepping back to allow the other person to feel the weight of your absence and to rediscover your intrinsic value. Imagine this. You're always the first to reach out, the one holding the relationship together. They've become so accustomed to your availability that they hardly notice it anymore. What happens when you stop? When you step back? The silence you leave behind will speak louder than any words could. It forces them to confront a reality they've taken for granted. You. Stay with me as we explore how creating emotional distance can transform the dynamics of your relationships and, most importantly, restore your own sense of worth. By the end of this journey, you won't just reclaim their attention, you'll rediscover your own power. We'll start with the first and most vital step, recognizing your worth. 1. Recognize your worth. What is your value in a relationship? Have you ever asked yourself this question, honestly and deeply? Often we chase the attention and affection of others without pausing to consider if their actions reflect the same energy we're giving. Why do we do this? Is it because we believe our worth is tied to their approval? Stoicism teaches us that our value lies not in how others perceive us, but in how we perceive ourselves. Think about the dynamic in your relationship. Have you positioned yourself as the pursuer, always giving, always accommodating, always available? If so, consider this. What message does that send about your worth? When you make yourself overly accessible, you unintentionally communicate that your time, energy, and presence are not valuable. They're simply a given. Here's the harsh truth. People value what they have to work for. When you're always there, always giving, you risk becoming part of the background noise in their lives, reliable but unremarkable. Stoicism reminds us to focus on what we can control, and in this case, that's our own actions. You cannot control how others treat you, but you can control how much of yourself you give to those who do not reciprocate. So how do you reclaim your worth? Begin by asking yourself this: what do I truly bring to the table in this relationship? Perhaps it's your unwavering support, your emotional strength, or your ability to solve problems. Now consider whether the other person values those qualities or if they've started taking them for granted. If the latter is true, it's time to step back and reestablish your boundaries. This isn't about withdrawing to punish them or playing games. It's about realignment. Imagine yourself as a priceless work of art. Would you place it in a dusty corner where no one notices it? Or would you showcase it in a way that demands admiration and care? Your worth is no different. By pulling back, you're not diminishing your value, you're demanding it be seen for what it truly is. The process of recognizing your worth requires discipline. You'll feel the urge to reach out, to explain, to prove your value. Resist it. Remember the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Let your actions or lack thereof communicate your worth. The beauty of this step is that it's not just about them, it's about you. When you stop chasing, you reclaim the energy you were pouring into someone who wasn't meeting you halfway. You redirect it toward yourself, your goals, your passions, your growth. And as you do, you become a person who doesn't need to chase, because you've become the one worth pursuing. Recognizing your worth is the foundation for everything that follows. Without it, the other steps will falter. With it, you'll find the strength to let go of what you can't control and focus on what you can. Yourself. Now that you've grounded yourself in your own value, let's explore the next crucial step, letting them feel the silence. 2. Let them feel the silence. What happens when the noise disappears? When the texts stop coming, the calls aren't made, and the constant stream of attention dries up? Silence, though often uncomfortable, is one of the most powerful tools you have to create emotional distance. It forces reflection, curiosity, and ultimately recognition of your absence. Ask yourself, when was the last time I gave them space to miss me? If you've been the one, always reaching out, always keeping the connection alive, they've likely grown used to your efforts. They expect your attention, not because they've earned it, but because you've conditioned them to believe it's endless. In a world flooded with instant gratification, your silence becomes a rarity, and a rarity is valuable. Why does silence work so effectively? The answer lies in human nature. People don't appreciate what's always available. They take it for granted. But when you remove your presence, you create a void. That void speaks volumes. It forces them to confront the questions they've been avoiding. Why aren't they texting? Did I do something wrong? Have I lost them? These questions are not a sign of manipulation, but a natural response to the disruption of their expectations. Silence, however, isn't easy to maintain. You'll feel the temptation to break it, to send a quick text, or to check in just to see how they're doing. But every time you resist, you reclaim a little more of your power. Remember what Epictetus taught. It is not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of their significance. Your silence doesn't harm them. It's their interpretation of it, their realization of what they've taken for granted, that creates discomfort. But what should you do during this silence? Use the time to focus on yourself. Read that book you've been putting off. Pursue a hobby that excites you. Spend time with people who uplift you. As you invest in your own growth, you reinforce the message that your life moves forward with or without their attention. Silence isn't about waiting for them to notice you. It's about showing them that your world doesn't revolve around them. How long should the silence last? That depends on you. The key is to hold firm until you feel their absence of effort is met with genuine recognition of your value. And here's the beautiful part. Whether they return or not, you've already won. You've taken the first step toward a healthier, more balanced dynamic, one where you're no longer chasing but being pursued. Letting them feel the silence requires strength and discipline, but the payoff is undeniable. It shifts the power dynamic and forces a reevaluation of your worth, not just for them, but for yourself. As you reflect on this step, take a moment to engage. Drop a comment below. I am ready to let silence speak for me. Let me know how you plan to use this step in your own relationships. And if this resonates with you, hit that like button. It helps us connect with others who need this message of self-respect and empowerment. Stay with me, because in the next section, we'll take things a step further by exploring how to withdraw your emotional support without guilt. 3. Withdraw emotional support. Have you ever wondered how much emotional labor you carry in a relationship? The subtle yet heavy weight of being the one who checks in, smooths over conflicts, or ensures everything stays on track. Often this work goes unnoticed by them and even by you. Yet when you step back, when you stop carrying their emotional burdens, the absence of your support becomes glaringly clear. Think about the dynamics of your relationship. Are you the problem solver, the emotional anchor, the one they lean on when life gets hard? If so, consider this. Are they leaning on you, or are they fully supported by you? There's a significant difference. Being a partner means sharing responsibilities, not shouldering them alone. When you withdraw your emotional support, it forces them to face challenges on their own. This isn't an act of cruelty, but a necessary step toward balance. How can they learn to stand on their own if you're always there to catch them? How can they grow to appreciate your strength if they've never felt the absence of it? This step is often the hardest because it requires you to resist your natural instincts. You may feel guilty stepping back. Questions may creep into your mind. Will they think I've stopped caring? Will they struggle without me? But remember, this is not about abandoning them. It's about letting them realize the weight of what you've been carrying. It's about teaching them to stand on their own feet while you reclaim your energy. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This wisdom applies here. Instead of explaining or justifying your decision to step back, simply do it. Let your actions speak for you. the lesson they'll learn from your absence will be far more impactful than any words you could say. The beauty of this withdrawal is that it doesn't require confrontation or drama. It's subtle yet powerful. You stop offering solutions. You stop being the first to ask, "How can I help?" You stop carrying the emotional weights that aren't yours to bear. And as they face their struggles without your constant support, they begin to see the depth of what you provided. But what about you? What do you gain from this step? The answer is simple: freedom. Freedom from the invisible burden of always being the strong one. Freedom to redirect your energy toward your own growth and well-being. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, and here, that means controlling where your energy goes. By withdrawing emotional support, you create space for yourself and for them. This isn't a one-sided journey. As they learn to navigate their challenges independently, you gain clarity about the relationship's true balance. Do they step up and take responsibility, or do they fall apart without you? Their response will reveal whether they value you as a partner or simply as a convenience. Withdrawal is not abandonment, it's realignment. You're not closing the door on the relationship, but opening a path to a healthier dynamic. One where your strength is recognized, not exploited. One where your effort is met with effort in return. As we move forward, we'll take this foundation of withdrawal and build on it. In the next step, we'll explore how to challenge their assumptions and disrupt the patterns that have kept them comfortable for far too long. 4. Challenge their assumptions. People thrive on predictability. When they believe they know exactly how you'll behave, they feel comfortable, sometimes too comfortable. Over time, this predictability can lead to complacency. They assume you'll always be there, always respond, always care, regardless of how little effort they put into the relationship. So how do you break this cycle? By challenging their assumptions. Have they come to expect you to text first? To fix the problems? To be the one who always smooths over conflicts? If so, it's time to stop. Ask yourself, why do I feel obligated to maintain this pattern? Am I reinforcing behavior that devalues my presence? The truth is, when you disrupt their expectations, you force them to reevaluate their understanding of the relationship and your role in it. This doesn't mean acting erratically or playing games. Stoicism reminds us that our actions must always be rooted in reason and virtue. Challenging their assumptions is not about creating chaos, but about realigning their perspective. You're showing them that your time, energy, and care are not things to be taken lightly. Imagine someone who has grown used to receiving a good morning text from you every day. They wake up expecting it, not because they've earned it, but because it has become routine. One day the text doesn't come. At first they may shrug it off, assuming you're busy. But as the silence stretches, they start to wonder, what changed? Why didn't they reach out? This moment of uncertainty is where transformation begins. The absence of your usual patterns forces them to think, to question, and most importantly, to recognize that their assumptions about your availability were wrong. They begin to see that your presence was never a guarantee, it was a gift. Breaking patterns isn't always easy. You may feel a pull to maintain the status quo, especially if it has become a source of comfort for you as well. But consider this. What do I gain by staying predictable? Am I prioritizing their comfort over my own growth and self-respect? The courage to step away from what feels familiar is a hallmark of inner strength, a principle deeply rooted in Stoicism. When you challenge their assumptions, you also challenge yourself. It requires discipline to hold back when you're tempted to revert to old habits. But in doing so, you teach them and yourself a valuable lesson. Relationships thrive not on routine, but on mutual effort and respect. As their assumptions crumble, they're left with a choice, to adjust and step up or to fall behind. Either way, you've shifted the dynamic. You're no longer the predictable presence they can rely on without effort. Instead, you've become someone who demands attention and care, not through words, but through your actions. Challenging assumptions isn't about creating distance for the sake of it. It's about fostering awareness. It's about showing them that relationships require more than comfort. They require work, appreciation, and intentionality. In the next step, we'll take this disruption even further by exploring how to introduce the fear of loss into the equation. When they truly understand that you're not a constant, they'll begin to value what they once took for granted. Stay with me. The transformation is just beginning. 5. Create the fear of loss. What do people value most? Not what they have, but what they fear losing. This universal truth lies at the heart of human relationships. When someone assumes your presence is guaranteed, they grow complacent. But the moment they sense your absence, a shift occurs. Fear creeps in. They begin to wonder, what if I've lost them? Have you ever noticed how people suddenly pay attention when they think you're slipping away? This reaction isn't coincidence, it's human nature. We're wired to protect what we fear losing, and that includes relationships. By creating the fear of loss, you reawaken their awareness of your value. This isn't about manipulation, it's about breaking through the fog of complacency. But how do you create this fear? It starts with emotional distance. As you step back, whether by reducing communication, withdrawing your emotional support, or challenging their assumptions, you introduce uncertainty. And uncertainty is unsettling. It forces them to confront the possibility that you might not always be there. At first, they may rationalize your absence. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they just need some space. But as the silence stretches, their mind begins to wander. Have they moved on? Are they happier without me? What if this is the end? These questions are not only uncomfortable but transformative. They shine a light on what they've taken for granted and make them realize that your presence was never as secure as they assumed. This process takes time. You may feel tempted to step in to reassure them, to smooth over their discomfort. Resist the urge. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Your role is not to shield them from the consequences of their own behavior, but to allow them to experience it fully. The fear of loss is powerful because it disrupts the illusion of control. They've grown accustomed to believing they have you, that no matter what happens, you'll always be there. But when you pull back, you shatter that illusion. They're forced to confront the reality that relationships require effort, and if they don't step up, they might lose you for good. At the same time, this fear serves another purpose. It helps you regain your sense of worth. As they scramble to bridge the gap you've created, you'll see clearly whether their effort matches your value. Do they reach out with genuine care and a desire to reconnect, or do they retreat, unwilling to invest the effort? Their response will tell you everything you need to know. Creating the fear of loss isn't about instilling panic, it's about sparking realization. It's about showing them that your presence is a choice, not an obligation. And as they grapple with the possibility of losing you, they'll begin to understand what they had and what they risk losing forever. So how does this resonate with you? Have you experienced the power of stepping back, of creating the fear of loss in a relationship? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if this message has struck a chord, don't forget to hit that like button. Your engagement helps spread this message to others who need to rediscover their own worth. In the next section, we'll take this emotional shift even deeper by exploring what happens when you leave them to face the weight of their own struggles. Stay with me, this journey is far from over. 6. Leave them drowning without your strength. When you've been the pillar of strength in a relationship, the one who holds things together, it often goes unnoticed. Your emotional support becomes an invisible force, always there, always dependable. They lean on you, sometimes without realizing just how much weight they're placing on your shoulders. But what happens when you step away? When you let go and allow them to navigate the storms of life on their own? That's when they truly understand what they've lost. Think for a moment, how much of their life have I been holding up? The steady comfort of your presence, the encouragement when they felt low, the solutions you provided for their problems, it all added a stability they might not have even acknowledged. And that's the key. They didn't acknowledge it because you made it look effortless. But your strength isn't infinite, and it isn't something to be taken for granted. When you withdraw, the cracks in their foundation begin to show. They start to feel the full weight of their challenges without your help to lighten the load. The conflicts you used to resolve now rest squarely on their shoulders. The reassurance you provided is replaced by uncertainty, and the calm you brought to their chaos is replaced by the realization that they are alone in their struggle. At first, they may try to dismiss your absence. I don't need them. I can handle this. But as the difficulties pile up, they'll start to see the truth. It wasn't just their strength holding everything together. It was yours. Your withdrawal becomes a mirror, reflecting the extent of their reliance on you and exposing the emotional labor they never fully appreciated. But this step isn't just about them. It's about you too. It's about reclaiming the energy you've been pouring into someone else and redirecting it back to yourself. Think of how often you've put their needs before your own, sacrificing your time, energy, and emotional well-being to keep them afloat. Now, you're finally giving yourself permission to stop. This is where Stoicism becomes a guiding light. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You are not responsible for their struggles. Their ability or inability to cope is not your burden to bear. By stepping back, you're not abandoning them, you're giving them the opportunity to grow stronger in their own right. Of course, this process isn't easy. You may feel a pang of guilt watching them struggle. You might wonder if you're being too harsh. But remember, resilience isn't built in comfort. It's forged in adversity. By allowing them to face their challenges without your constant support, you're giving them the chance to develop their own strength and to recognize yours in the process. What happens next will reveal a lot about the dynamic between you. Do they rise to the occasion, learning to navigate life without depending on you? Or do they falter, unable to function without your guidance? Either way, you gain clarity. You see the truth of their character in the balance or imbalance of your relationship. This step isn't about revenge or teaching a lesson. It's about restoring equilibrium. It's about showing them and yourself that your strength is not something to be given away lightly. As they struggle to stay afloat without you, they'll begin to understand the depth of what you provided. And in that realization, a new respect for your presence is born. In the next step, we'll shift the focus once again, exploring how to let them feel the weight of the emotional labor they unknowingly placed on you. This journey is far from over, so stay with me as we continue. 7. Make them feel the weight they took off your shoulders. When someone has become accustomed to you carrying the emotional load in a relationship, they rarely stop to notice the weight you bear. The check-ins, the emotional support, the problem-solving, it all flows so smoothly from you that it seems effortless. They don't see the energy you expend, the silent sacrifices you make to keep the relationship afloat. But when you step back, the balance shifts. They're left to carry the weight on their own, and only then do they realize how heavy it truly is. Have you ever paused to consider how much emotional labor you perform daily in your relationships? Perhaps it's the small acts of kindness that go unacknowledged or the moments when you step in to fix problems they didn't even know existed. Over time, this labor accumulates. It becomes the unspoken foundation of the relationship. But the trouble is, when it's never acknowledged, it's also never appreciated. So what happens when you stop? What happens when you place that weight back where it belongs on their shoulders? At first, there may be confusion, even resentment. They might think, why aren't they helping like they used to? Why aren't they smoothing over this situation? But as time passes, they begin to feel the strain. The seemingly small tasks you handled with ease now feel monumental to them. They're left to face the reality that your effort was the glue holding so many aspects of the relationship together. This realization is uncomfortable for them and for you. You may find yourself tempted to step back in, to offer the help they've come to expect, if only to ease the tension. But resist that urge. Remember the wisdom of Epictetus. We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them. Your withdrawal isn't about causing suffering. It's about creating awareness. If they never feel the weight you carried, they'll never truly appreciate the strength it took to bear it. As they adjust to this shift, one of two things will happen. They might rise to the occasion, taking responsibility for the emotional labor they've placed on you. They might begin to contribute in ways they never have before, creating a more balanced dynamic. Or they may resist the change, retreating into frustration or apathy. Either way, their response is telling. It reveals whether they value you as a partner or merely as a source of convenience. For you, This step is transformative. It's a chance to reflect on the boundaries you've allowed to blur. Have you been giving too much without asking for anything in return? Have you been carrying a load that isn't yours to bear? By stepping back, you're not only allowing them to grow, you're reclaiming your own time and energy. You're learning to set boundaries that protect your well-being. This shift also changes the way you see yourself. You begin to recognize the quiet strength you've always had, the resilience that allowed you to give so much for so long. And as you pull back, you rediscover a vital truth. Your worth is not tied to how much you do for others. It's inherent. It doesn't require constant validation or recognition. The beauty of this step is that it doesn't require confrontation. You don't need to explain your actions or justify your withdrawal. The weight you once carried will speak for itself. They'll feel its absence in every small frustration, every unresolved problem, every moment they realize they can no longer depend on you to make things easier. And in that absence, they'll begin to understand your value. As we move into the final step, we'll explore how to reshape the power dynamic entirely. It's time to show them they're not the center of your world and never were. Stay with me as we bring this journey to its powerful conclusion. 8. Show them they're not the big deal they thought they were. For too long, they believed they were the center of your world. Perhaps it was unspoken, or perhaps they grew accustomed to your attention, your care, and your effort orbiting around them. Whatever the case, it's time to shatter that illusion. They need to understand a truth that Stoicism emphasizes. No one else controls your life but you. What happens when you stop prioritizing them? When you shift your focus away from their needs, their moods, and their whims, they start to feel the cold reality that your world doesn't revolve around them, and it never should have. This realization can be uncomfortable for them, but it's also necessary. Comfort breeds complacency, and complacency leads to a lack of respect. Breaking this cycle is essential if you want to reset the dynamic in your relationship. But how do you show them they're not the big deal they thought they were? You do it by focusing entirely on yourself. Redirect your energy to your own goals, passions, and growth. Start doing the things you've been putting off because you were too consumed with maintaining the relationship. When you place yourself at the center of your life, you naturally disrupt the dynamic where they assumed they were the priority. This isn't about neglecting the relationship or being unkind. It's about balance. It's about showing them and yourself that your life has depth and purpose beyond their presence. When you reclaim that space, you send a clear, silent message. I don't need you to feel complete. Their reaction will reveal a lot. At first, they might feel confused or even threatened. Why aren't they texting as much? Why are they suddenly so busy? But as time goes on, they'll begin to realize that their sense of importance in your life wasn't as secure as they believed. They'll see that your attention, your time, and your care are privileges, not guarantees. This shift doesn't require confrontation or explanation. In fact, it's more effective when it's subtle. Stop responding immediately to every message. Stop rearranging your schedule to accommodate theirs. Stop bending over backward to keep them happy. These small acts of withdrawal create a ripple effect that forces them to confront their assumptions. But there's an even greater transformation happening here. Your own. By stepping away from their shadow, you begin to see the fullness of your own life. You realize that your worth isn't dependent on anyone else's validation. You rediscover passions you may have neglected and build new confidence in your ability to thrive independently. This aligns perfectly with Stoic philosophy, which teaches us to focus on what we can control, our own actions, thoughts, and priorities. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, dwell on the beauty of life, watch the stars, and see yourself running with them. This is your moment to look beyond the confines of the relationship and see the vastness of your own potential. As you embrace this independence, something fascinating happens. You become more attractive, not because you're playing hard to get, but because self-assuredness is magnetic. When they see that you're no longer chasing them, that your happiness doesn't hinge on their presence, they're forced to reconsider their place in your life. And here's the ultimate truth. Whether they step up or step away, you've already won. If they rise to meet you, it's because they've learned to respect your boundaries and value your presence. If they fade into the background, it's because they were never willing to meet you halfway. And now you have the clarity to let them go. Remember that the purpose of creating emotional distance isn't to manipulate or punish. It's to realign the balance of power, rediscover your own worth, and foster a relationship based on mutual respect. Your life doesn't revolve around anyone else. And by embracing that truth, you free yourself to live fully, authentically, and on your own terms. As we reach the end of this journey, take a moment to reflect on everything you've learned about creating emotional distance. This is not a tactic to play games or manipulate others. It's a profound act of self-respect. By stepping back, you allow others to see your true value while reclaiming your own energy, time, and peace of mind. These steps, rooted in Stoic principles, are about reclaiming control of what is yours: your mind, your actions, and your energy. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength comes from understanding that no one has the right to dictate your worth. You alone are responsible for it. But here's the most important part. Creating emotional distance isn't just about them, it's about you. It's about fostering a relationship with yourself where you feel whole, independent, and empowered. Whether or not they respond as you hope, you've already taken the most important step, prioritizing your peace and growth. Now, let me leave you with this challenge. How will you begin to implement these steps in your life? This isn't an easy journey, but the rewards are worth it. By valuing yourself, you teach others to do the same. If this message resonated with you, let me know in the comments below. Share which step you're ready to take or reflect on how emotional distance has transformed your relationships in the past. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can continue this journey together. Thank you for trusting me to guide you through this process. Remember, your worth is not negotiable, and your power lies within you. Wishing you strength, clarity, and self-respect as you take these lessons forward into your life. Until next time, stay strong and stay true to yourself.